Another week, another SCL coverage video for y'all. Like I mentioned, this was a little bit delayed because I wanted to cover a few more teams that I had in the workshop, and I also wanted to do, of course, the tier shift video on Wednesday. So, hey, this comes a little later. You'll get the next one on time on Monday, as per usual. What's poppin', people, though? We're back. Of course, before we get into this video, a little reminder, if you're not yet subscribed, just go on and do that right now. Before we get into the video, help the channel hit 10k subscribers. We're over halfway there. I know we can do it. I just need a little bit of help. And we begin this week with, once again, another HO game. I mean, this is an HO on each side. This is still an offensive team from Kashalos, where you've got Hat to maybe support something like non-boot Scyther, for example, here, because you could have Hat plus Spin. And that's quite a lot of support. So Scyther could run like a Violet, for example, or even Life Orb if you wanted a boosting item. Whereas you've also got the same idea over here from Freezai, where you've got the lead Lycanroc, and that's going to have Taunt. And then you've got Tatsugiri, that's going to have Rapid Spin, because it always takes on this supportive role on HO with Spin Memento to facilitate very, very free turns. And I'm here to tell you right now, too, this Salazzle, it reveals itself to be Taunt. So, all of that kind of points out to Scyther not being boots. Let's get into this. So we see Lycan versus Yama, and this is a pretty dire lead for Freezai, but mostly the way he plays it, because I don't think he takes this too optimally. The Yama lead is always going to bulk up. He endeavors immediately to look for Chip, because if this Mon bulks up too many times, it is kind of scary. Like, there is a world where this Mon could sweep you down. And, weirdly enough, too, I want to topic on this real quick, because we're spectating this on Smoke Tours. Everyone's kind of wondering, like, wait, why this one just died at the Jurade? Is it not Focus Sag? So, kind of wondering. Freezai, I'm sure, has uploaded his video on it. I just haven't watched it. My bad. I was wondering, is this Focus banned? Did he accidentally give a ban? And yeah, gets one shot there. Lazzle coming out means immediately Encore. And you also see, too, that Lazzle was Balloon instead of Boots. So, this spawn also being supported by having that Spin plus Taunt and not having to run Boots, getting a more useful item is very cool. And there you go, there's the Taunt. So Decid comes out to block the Spin. You want to keep your own hazards where you can. Now Tatsu comes out knowing there's a fire move. The burn doesn't really matter here because it's Tatsugiri. I mean, the Mon doesn't need to have, physical attacks doing more from it. And we're going to also see kind of a cool tech from Freezai. With the White Herb on Tatsugiri, this kind of patches up one of its biggest weaknesses. Now, of course, Bulk's the biggest one it struggles with, kind of limiting how often it can come in. Another big issue for it, though, is when you Draco, this special attack drop, it kind of messes you up and makes it very easy to exploit. And we can talk now on the Bulk issue real quick. That makes it hard to find turns to actually Nasty Plot and offset it without, running an item. So this is a cool option. The Scyther comes out here. Its Sword Stance is up, and I'm here to tell you right now, this play is incredible. Freezai, knowing this Yama with Tera Steel, popping with a CC. Kashalos said this was a damage roll, so kind of lucky here. And we also see Kashalos non-boot Scyther pop by the quick attack. We've seen this Tera Normal Scyther take off. But then we see as well, Freezai, like we said for preview, you don't have to run the, what's it called? You don't have to run the boots with this much support. And we're going to see Kush now. He fishes from Flame Body. He's just unable to get it. I mean, this is the only route. There's maybe a way for Jolteon to clutch it at the end. Although there's not. There's a decision why you have to be Shadow Ball. Which, hey, he passed me a team with Shadow Ball Jolt, so I don't think it's incredibly unlikely. But he's unable to ever get the Flame Body. Scyther just Omega sweeps him. Very cool text from Freezai. I really did like some of these. I just need to look into what his video said about the Lycanroc set. Because, yeah, that is not Sash. And next, of course, I will cover my Co-TL's game. Because you know what? He left you all with a very good message. And I just gotta show you. So, oh, maybe I should actually talk about the lead. So, yeah. We see Yuxi from Watashi, which is not a very common Mon. We have seen very little Yuxi in this tier, and I think a lot of people expected it to be a much stronger option. It's like Mesprit, but instead of having a much more balanced stat distribution, you're faster and far bulkier. Maybe lending yourself to those calm mindsets being even more difficult to stop. especially when you throw in a Tera Fairy Training Kiss. Very good way to sustain your HP, keep you from dying, and in general, I mean, Uxie does offer a decent amount of defensive utility. You're able to put a stop to a lot of Pokemon trying to break through it with the help of Tera, with how bulky you are, with CM boosting. And I'm sorry if you hear the dogs in the background, they just, I think, want their food really badly and haven't been given it yet. So I'm gonna hope they're just quiet. You know what, I'm gonna pause and go make sure that they're not upset about something more pressing. I'll be right back. So yeah, like I thought there was no issue. Anyhow, back to this game. We see the Uxie from Watashi, which is going to be a really cool pick. The only issue is, this might be one of the worst games for it ever. In large part because Eternally brought Skuntank, but also the Mismagius. Nasty pull out Mismagius with that sub-Drainicus set that I have preached to y'all non-stop. And it's very hard to stop this game for Watashi. And in particular, it just kind of denies Uxie. If we're assuming the Uxie is going to be some standard, like, draining his stored power stuff, you're just not really going to break it. And even mons like Skuntank are going to showcase why that is, because it's very, very weak initially. And if you're unable to use your Terastallizing on it, then, yeah, that Drainicus stays weak the whole game. Remember, it's only 50 base power. And Terastallizing takes it up to 60, because Terastallize just does that for any move below 60 power. And it gives it stab. But without all that, it doesn't really do anything, so... Napmon could honestly kind of struggle to do a ton this game. Meanwhile, on Eternaly's side, I actually do really like the Skuntank bring. I think it's pretty cool for what set it ends up being. Knockoff is going to be very, very free on the Gligar. That kind of opens up things as well for your Electrode, because once this thing gets knocked, your Leaf Storm just does infinitely more damage, and you're not really worried about it walling anything at that point. This matchup, it's not like Gligar is this impenetrable force anyway for your team, where you have to get rid of its Eviolite, or else you just can't break it, but it always goes a long way in making sure that you can pop it on a switch. So, I'll say to talk about this that weird bug. Anyhow, we see this sequence play out immediately, where Skunk just gets a knock on the Gligar, and then Eternally immediately brings in his own Gligar, because, well, you may as well. It's your best switch in. And here, we see why I think Tatsugiri sucks, because it gets Quaked. Eternally brings in Electrode. And I will say, I think Draco probably made more sense from Watashi here. It probably KO'd Gligar. Maybe it didn't. I don't know the calc, but I don't think it tanked one. And you could have just KO'd the Gligar there instead of going for this Rapid Spin. The spin, of course, predicts a switch of some kind, right? The problem is, this mon is still faster than just Leaf Storms. So what was the point? Like, what was the point? God, I hate Tatsugiri. Now, Volt Switch, bring in Gligar. You get your own hazards here now, so that's always a benefit, especially because this Paldean Tauros, you want to limit that mon as much as you can. And yeah, I don't know why the spikes aren't showing up. Rest assured, there are lots of hazards going up on this side of the field. You know what? There we go. There's the hazards. So, Watashi gets up basically every hazard he could. While there's Eternally only has his 3 layers of spikes, but even they are going to put in a ton of work. Like we said, wearing down the Paldean Tauros, wearing down even Kaparaja. Those are 2 mons you really like getting pressured, especially for your Mismagius, because if this is Scarf, then it can revenge kill you. And here we see the Skuntank absolutely obliterate the Uxie. Not with an attack, no, but it's Haze. His Uxie is not breaking. Like, sure, he could Tera Fairy here and probably beat it down, but you don't need to dedicate this early. And it's a lot better just to let the Skuntank exist around for now. And the Scarf Tauros, it's not even Scarf, ends up just being Boots, so it was probably a bulk up Trailblaze set. And he takes a ton of recoil damage there. And lets him Mismagius, because this is a very free substitute. I mean, you're faster, you know, they probably want to preserve them on. There's no reason to sack if you don't have to. Especially since Kaparaja will always be checking this Mismagius. And it ends up being Whirlwind Kaparaja as well. So, I mean, the Mismagius can do absolutely nothing to it. And it takes a knock on this Trode, which is really funny to see it get paralyzed. Static Electrode, putting in a lot of work there. And once again, we see the Whirlwind coming out. Very, very easy. And look at that! Sub to Lord Rock! Yo! Shoutouts eternally doing some advertising work. If you are not yet subscribed 10 minutes into the video, go down and fix that right now. Both the NUTLs are telling you to do it, so you know what? Must be some good advice, right? Right? And yeah, the song comes out. Just gets to KO the Raja very easily. Now he can get Stealth Rock whenever he wants. Yuxi coming out. This mage is always going to be the response. You don't want to give this one too many turns. Even though it is pretty trivial to deal with, you don't want to see all the boosts. And there you go. A great example, too, of how weak this mon is. I mean, the Draenix did 11. That is not serious damage. It's not a serious Pokemon. And Rotom comes out, immediately gets his Volt Switch denied. And the Gligar now can just get that nice little dual wing beat off. Continue chipping away at Watashi's Gligar. Which, by this point, doesn't matter a ton. But it's nice to know that it's certainly within Leaf Storm range. From the Hisuian Electrode, this mon also still has at least one switch in spite of all the hazards. And we see Yuxi come out here. The unfortunate part of this is, yeah, Goodra has the means to deny you. So, we know the Tera Fairy is coming out here, so Sludge Bomb is very, very free. I remember I was watching this game over, and I'm like, huh, it'd be a damn shame if, Otashi Tera Fairy had eternally predicted that, right? And this Usyk is poisoned. It doesn't really matter. It wasn't ever sweeping anyway. The Zong is going to come out and always wall it. If it's Iron Defense, Body Press especially, that's just kind of insulting. But eternally knowing how lacking of a threat this is, he just rocks up. And it's just over. There's too many hazards. Watashi has no actual win condition at this point. I mean, maybe you say that Trailblaze Tauros could somehow finagle away, but not with Gligar at full. Not with Gligar at full. And so we see the forfeit come out there. It certainly gets a very, very dominant win. And now, we begin the part of the live where I point out that there is an Avalugg in every game, and in particular we see Chansey Avalugg 3 times. And I will be doing a video on why Chansey Avalugg is so good in NU right now. A little brief reasoning is, I mean, you basically take you got a complete polarization of the defensive spectrum here. That's like the best way I could put it. Where Chansey checks every special attacker in the tier, Avalugg checks every physical attacker in the tier. You need to Tera for some of them, but you achieve it, right? And then you throw the Gligar in like you do with Taki's team. You've got very good coverage across all the threats. Because maybe the one kind of thing you're worried about is fighting types with the Chansey Lug core, because, well, hey, you're both weak to fighting. Gligar handles those very, very easily. And from Elias, what's kind of scary is we see a generally standard team. So you can assume at least something will be afoot. You just don't know what. And we're looking at teams as well. I'm really looking at Taki's team, I'm like, ooh, this is kind of interesting, because you've got Chansey and Gligar for your hazards, so this means this Lycanroc is going to be something like Swords Dance. SD Lycan could actually pose some questions to Elias' team. The Gligar gets weakened ever. Maybe you even just trade Nox with your own Gligar. That's going to make it a lot less effective at checking your own. Meanwhile, if the Lug isn't able to preserve its own Terastallizing, maybe Lycan's able to beat that so long as you get the Sturdy broken. Rotom is always going to kind of vibe check you, but you've got Gligar to block Volt, you've got H-Trode and Chansey to take Leaf Storms, you've even got your own Hoopa to take some of those hits. Hoopa, of course, has a very good special bulk naturally, and we've mentioned it in the past. It is just kind of nice as a soft check to many of the special attackers in the tier. So begin this game, also just as an aside, is Hoopa obliterates this team. Anyhow, Gligar lead versus the Rotom. Taki immediately U-turning there, getting momentum, and already bringing out the man, the myth, the legend. And then bring out their own Gligar, because they just try to scout what Elias the Gligar has. You don't want to let your Lug get a Toxic on it super early. We will see that this Chansey's Heal Bell, just because the Gligar reveals Stealth Rock, but point still stands. You don't want to give up free turns if you don't have to. And winning in the knowledge game is just as important throughout the game as getting any, like, random hit of chip damage off on the opponent. And here's where we see, again, rocks go up, and we get a knock on Gligar. That is huge if you're trying to get a sweep to Lycan late. Even just like in the Eternally game, though. H-Trode does benefit from Gligar getting knocked, Leaf Storm is now going to be smashing. And here we see Hoopla get in. Huge Focus Blast. Getting off a nice hit on the Goodra. At first I thought it was Specs. This actually just ends up being like Assault Vest Hoopa though. It is not Specs damage, which is kind of disgusting to see it do over 40 to a Goodra, but not a Gligar once again gets in versus Copper. It does take a knockoff. That is going to be helpful for potentially the Dunsparce or even just Elias's Rotom-Mow. The same idea applies to this side's Gligar, where, okay, losing a Violet, harder to block Volt Switch now, because Leaf Storm is doing so much. And here, we're going to see this Avalugg start asking some questions. As you know, Elias is probably spinning or recovering, one of the two here. And Talkie just decides, hey, what's poppin', B? I'm gonna iron defense up. What you got for me? So the Gligar comes out, and here, once again, you do see Talkie looking for the Scout, not wanting to let the Lug get toxic for no reason. And we see it revealed there. And now the Gligar just throw rocks right back up, get its slow U-turn off, and maintain that momentum, baby. It's just simple mathematics. Hoopla comes back out once again, asking questions, and seeing it take Rock's Chip does let me believe that it is going to be a Assault Vest set. Because here I believe he Focus Blast. Yeah, we see Focus Blast out of here. So I'm thinking that was a V-Hoopa. I don't know what else it'd be. And I'm going to let you all know this Goodra ends up doing functionally nothing the whole game. The chance he keeps coming in, taking a knockoff, and disregarding everything. Now here we see Elias actually with Iron Head Raja, which I like as a tech. It's just generally kind of advantageous into this increased Chansey Avalugg metagame, where you see this core quite a lot. Avalugg's very heavy, so it doesn't take much damage from your Heavy Slam. So Iron Head, nice way to at least get better chip and punish an otherwise very, very stout core. Then Elias bringing in his own Avalugg. You're going to see the spin here. And this Chansey losing against a Violet, actually his Rapid Spin almost did 20. That's really funny. Nice double here from Elias. Volt here is pretty free. So we see the Volt. And he can bring Goodra once again. Instead he opts for Dedun. And his Dunsparce actually does quite a bit of nastiness here. So we see the Body Slam para, and you remember I said Elias is going to have something disgusting? Yeah. Nice bite. Nice little nibble. And perhaps, unfortunately for Elias, though, he gets static by the Electrode, so immediately punished for committing that disgusting sin of biting. Why am I saying bite? Just run Dragon Tail, man. You've got spikes, just run the detail. God, disgusting. And yeah, once again, Lug comes out. And we're gonna keep getting these stupid Lug mirrors. Thankfully, we saw a double switch from Elias there. Unfortunately, though, like we said, Chansey checks every special attacker, and that is independent of a Violate. So the Leaf Storm chip doesn't even matter. And once again, two Avaluggs staring each other down. I mean, God. If I had to say one bad thing about NU right now, it's that the stupid table pink blob core is legitimately phenomenal. Genuinely, it works so well. It's just, please, I want real NU. I don't know why he keeps going. He's looking for the poison. Here we see Talkie actually reveal that they are Terra Poison, which is pretty detrimental to Elias's means of beating it down. Because you even get rid of your weakness things Iron Head out. It doesn't matter at this point. You got the speed boost, you're just faster. But this table could go in. Goodra comes out, so you do have to switch here, because you're not taking Draco. But there's very few conditions that need to be met at this point for that Avalugg to just sit in front of Elias's team and just start winning. I mean, look, as annoying as Serene Grace is with paraflinching, I do not think Bite the Dunsparce will break Avalugg. I've got a strange feeling it will at least break through once when it needs to and get a recover off after Bite has done a combined maybe 30% chip over 10 turns. What else to see here? This is maybe why Elias hasn't been taking some of these Avalugg trades and throwing off body presses more often, because he was EQ. So he's always been hard switching because he knew his Avalugg was literally set up fodder for Talkies. And once again, we see the Goodra do basically nothing. I'm gonna be honest, the most Goodra has done this game, which I guess in a way was incredibly impactful, was force out Talki's Avalugg when it had gotten an Iron Defense and a couple Rapid Spins off. Because Amon was actually looking like it could have swept this entire team if this Gudra was just another physical attacker. So hey, good on Gudra. You did that much at least. Once again, we see just another matchup with the Pokemons. This is just going to throw off an Icicle Crash or recover. We see it choose to recover here. You got to sack something, although it's not even a sack, because you get the Dunsparce in, and then this is a huge turn in the game, because this actually lived, and it nibbled the Hoopa. So, not only did you have the Dunsparce put a lot of pressure, frankly, on the Gligar, just through getting that early paralysis and a flinch, this tanking Hoopa's Focus Blast ends up being probably the biggest turn of the game. Because, had that died, Taki would have just won with Hoopa from there. But now, he withstands the assault, brings out his Avalugg versus the boosted Lycan, Tera Ghost, and easily KOs it. There's actually an out. Not a good out. We also see why Shadow Ball Chansey sucks. I get it. People are running it. It's probably Calm Mind Blast instead of Stealth Rock or Heal Ball. Well, you know it's not Stealth Rock, but probably Calm Mind. But look at how bad this damage is. It's just not serious. It's why I don't like Shadow Ball Chansey one bit, because compared to Blissey at least has a functional special attack stat. It's only 75, but it's pretty decent. It's enough to where you could viably run Calm Mind, and you could viably throw off Shadow Balls, and it's actually going to do a little bit. Very intelligent spin here by Elias, by the way, to get faster. But I don't know. I don't like it at all. I think Shadow Ball's just too weak. And now we see Elias's one win con, which is prevent the Avalugg from being able to boost by flinching it down. And yeah, Elias ends up flinching down the Avalugg. So, a little bit of robbery, I would say. I think all this Lug needed to do was get one Iron Defense, and it probably won. Especially with the recover game being so different. Elias was down to 2. Taki still had 7. Pretty dire way to end this game. But don't worry, we have more Chansey table! And Danny actually bringing probably one of the mons better suited, though, to break that core, which is Glastrier. Glassed, of course, very, very bulky itself, so it's going to be hard for these defensive mons to trade. Glassed also having the coverage move with CC. You can pop the Avalugg if they don't terastalize, well, Jover. But we see another similar idea to the Gligar, which is Palisand. Palisand covering up that weakness to fighting types, and just generally fighting type moves. Now, if I'm saying anything from preview, it's going to be once again, we see a Scyther. Scyther could put in kind of disgusting amounts of work versus this team, especially if it's SD Quick Attack. He just doesn't really have long-term counterplay here. And meanwhile, Danny's team, I don't know, it's like you're really banking on Glassed to somehow find a way past that defensive core. Otherwise, I think it becomes really, really difficult, because Grim isn't beating Table. Jolteon's not beating Chansey. Yeah, it's a disgusting angle that I don't really value. You really need Glass to do something. Let's see. So Table's just straight up led with. Table lead because you see the Lycanroc, which will be on full display in this last game, by the way. You're just trying to deny the rocks. Then Grim comes out, revealing Pickpocket Grim, stealing an eject pack, which is incredibly useless this game, but still a flex, and nonetheless. I'm going to see just the crunch trades. You get an immediate defense drop too, which is pretty vile. And now we see Grim versus Grim. Hard switch because this Grimmsnarl ends up being like a Salt Vest or something. Why'd I even say that? We saw the Pickpocket. Hard switch because the Grim doesn't have an attack, or not an attack move. It doesn't have... God. Why am I tripping over my words? Hard switch because you can't parting shot versus their Grim, and you're not trying to take a stupid play rough trade. Thank you. But we see Table just walling Grim there real quick. Light work, get a recover off, light work. And once again, we see these just hard Grimmsnarls always into the Gudra. As you're not wanting to let Chansey lose its Eviolite if you don't have to. Crunch doing 5 million damage there is pretty vile. And then a very nice read here. Knowing there'd be a switch, not wanting to risk the Sucker Punch on the Gudra. Getting all that health back with a Drain. Then bringing in Palisand on the Lycanroc the next turn just because you at least check it. Glass fighting its SD though, and again, the one way Danny has of pressuring GXC's team here. Big Horse. Horse gets off a nice huge hit. Goes for a high horsepower there just to basically vibe check. you know, in case the Avalugg decided to go for like Tera Poison there, or Tera like Ghost or Fairy, literally any Tera that made it resistant to fighting, you go for high horsepower, just to make sure you're not basically in a losing exchange. And he makes a nice aggressive play, staying in on the Scyther. And Glass has picked up 2 KOs. Unfortunately, he can't stay in again, because the Scyther U-turn would KO you that time. It might have been a roll. I don't think it was a roll at all. 34 is probably more in the middle or low end of that. And we see the Goodra come out, try to wall the Electrode. Unfortunately, it did get goobed by the foul play. And yeah, at this point, Danny's just kind of having to throw away multiple Mons to even deal with this Electrode. It's so fast that the Goodra got weakened earlier. He has thrown away 3 Pokemon trying to beat down a little Electrode. He finally does it, but that Mon just put in an insane amount of work. Got off the Aftermath chip too on the Grim. And one might say this is a bit of a grim situation for Danny. Anyhow, now we see the Terrasilize out of the Palisand here. It's going to easily trade with this Glassed and actually force it to KO itself with their helmet. Me personally, I would have recovered on that last turn, but that, you know, not everyone can be me. And now Danny's last chance basically is getting paralysis on Chansey and then full parrying it down. And yeah, that just does not happen. The Chansey does not ever get paralyzed. It wins this trade with the Jolteon, and then Grimmsnarl last is just not going to be enough. Especially with this not being a, what's it called? Bulk upset, but we even see there, Crunch not KOing this Chansey. That's why we didn't want it getting knocked. Look at that. Had this Chansey lost its item, would have been KO'd. It still would not have mattered, because you have the Palisand with the helmet in the back. You would have just gone to that eventually, forced Grimmsnarl to KO itself, but hey. Chansey gets a little KO. And you know, one more for the road! More Chansey Avalugg! This time with a Gligar and a Victory Bell. That way a fighting type should never beat you down. We see Axurtix bringing HO here with the Scarf Shaman with Healing Wish. At least what I presume to be Scarf Shaman. That way, maybe something like Farigiraf could go in earlier in a battle, just go for its Nasty Room stuff, and then come back out later after receiving a Healing Wish if it's gotten weakened. Be right back at full, go in again. And yeah, running into no Steel type with Farigiraf is kind of disgusting, because you don't even have to dedicate your Terrastalizing to break anything now. Maybe you still need to versus Avalugg, but I think Raw Terra Blast is what you'll always go for then anyway, so who cares. And like I said, Avalugg versus HO as a lead is quite strong, because what we're going to see is Avalugg leads, and it just spin. Because what's this Lycanroc going to do? Please, let me know. What you doing, buddy? What you doing, hey friend? What you doing? Unfortunately, Avarice loses the game of chicken and EQs. But hey, I mean, you've denied some rock turns, and now Farigiraf comes out. And it's just gonna nasty plot. Like, what do you have for me? What do you have? Oh, you know what you have actually is a nice little T-Wave. You know what's crazy though is how much a Psyshock did, and he didn't just keep spamming it. He could have kept this mod low. Unfortunately, since he didn't spam Psyshock, a chance he gets off the T-Wave very, very free. And maybe it still would have. The problem now is you're getting Seismic Toss spammed down, and you're getting some very, very bad paralysis turns here. This Farigiraf was at near full, gets full parried twice, now he feels forced into an early Trick Room, which doesn't matter that much, because Grimmsnarl is pretty slow, so you actually have a Mon that can exploit your own Trick Room. But now, he's forced out because he's scared the Goodra might Terra Dark, goes into Grim, and he just loses his Farigiraf's threat. I think if he had stayed in, it could have actually been pretty decent, especially since this wasn't Assault Vest Goodra, like it wasn't tanking a Terra Blast too well. But it is what it is. Once again, we see Avalugg just blanking any physical attacker that it chooses to switch into. It is just too bulky for these mons to get by its own. Good Gleam Read we see from Axurtix there, and he actually goes for another as well, which is very, very powerful. Staying in on an Earthquake. Yeah, I don't know what Earthquake hits. I think it's just a reliable means of hitting things like Salazzle and these steals. But we see Grim now be the response. I don't really vibe with the Grim play, but honestly, the mon's so bad. I think the idea is you go Grim, using it as an attempted pivot to where it could either draw in the Lug which, okay, doesn't do you a lot of good there, because the lug's going to be boots. Maybe draw on the lug, you can break it sturdy and then go in for a game with Scyther, which I actually think is pretty doable. Or you just come in with Grim, get it KO'd by the Sludge Bomb. I think that was what Axtrix was probably more likely hoping for, and then you would have got Salazzle for free, because if we look at this Fire Blast chip here, and this is really the only check Avarice has defensively to Lazzle, and it's getting two-shot. The only reason Axtrix switched there is because it's, you know, pretty risky. If he stays in, you don't want to give the game away to a Fire Blast miss. So once again, we see Lazzle coming in versus Victory. It will KO Mr. Johnny this turn. Jolteon or Goodra can come in. Not Goodra, it's always Jolteon. And you gotta switch. Shaven is your only switch. And now here, you're probably gonna be looking for your Healing Wish. If I were to hedge a guess. Yeah. And we see it block the Healing, not the Healing Wish, block the Strikes Up too. Giraffe gets to come in. But I was gonna say what I would have done is gone for Nasty Plot. That would have been a terrible play because it does reveal Sleep Powder. So I mean, if you needed any confirmation that this was a very, very defensive Victory Bell, there you go. And now a very good Tera there by Avarice, actually literally exactly letting it live a hit. And then he sacks his Goodra there because, hey, Agent Goodra, you did what you needed to do, buddy. You did what you needed to do, which was just check the Lazzle. Now here I think this is a very interesting turn. So, Axtrix was clearly calcing something. You see the timer going down right there. You know, he's in the workshop. And he was calcing, okay, this Jolteon Volt switches on my Lazzle. Do I live? And he learns he does. So the idea here is, okay, maybe I can do something on a Volt Switch. You know, if he Volt Switches, we're good. If he Calm Minds, obviously we're good. Unfortunately, he chose to Trailblaze here, and I think that was the worst play he could have gone for. Now, I said that very quietly, my bad. He went for Trailblaze here, and I think that was like one of the worst plays he could have gone for. Now, the logic was this. He predicted probably CM more than likely than not. I just don't think CM is ever coming out, because if you go for a Giraffe, you're just getting Psy Shock down, or you're getting a Trick Room set up versus you. And Jolteon doesn't... Maybe CM was always fine to predict there. I don't know, man. I don't think it's that good of a play from Avarice to CM up. I think Volt's always very, very free is the issue. And you know that you've got to deal with Table and Victory Bell on a defensive set. Historically, it has always been Helmet. And it's not weak to Hazard, so you don't have to run Boots. I don't even think I'd ever assume Boots. I get it, it's Gen 9. And a lot of mods just run Boots even if they're not weak to Hazards, because it's very advantageous to team building to not have to worry too much about getting that Spinner defog off. But he Trailblazed up clearly expecting a CM, and I just don't think he ever had to CM. The reason too, Trailblaze into either of CC, or really into any of the other attacking moves, CC, U-turn, do Wing Beat, had a high chance of netting a win versus Jolteon, or a guaranteed chance if you're talking about CC U-turn. So I think that is the thought process there. It's just kind of negated by how much Volt does, and then there being a Victory Belt and a Lug. I think Trailblaze is probably the one move you don't use there. What I probably would have liked to see is a CC. I get it, because if you get the play right and they CM, Trailblaze into attack might win you the game if you limit the Jolt. I think the area that always struggles in is I don't know if you ever beat Avalug still. Maybe with the Giraffe you can, because then you would have traded with Jolt. If you Trailblaze on a CM, then the Scyther's at full, Jolt is weak, and you hit that with dual Wing Beat or CC the next turn, and then from there you could always just hit Lug. I think that probably was it. I think Axtrix's only angle he was going for was the choke of the CM. Because, yeah, the more I think about it, I think actually a CM there loses Avarice the game. Because, yeah, how does he win? I know this is like a long discussion here about one turn in a battle, but I want to make sure I always explain how these little turns work out, at least in my own view. Because again, yeah, T-Bolt, you lose the game. Tera Blast, they're never going for, so it's really CM or Volt. Volt Switch, you also kind of just lose the game. Because even, you know, no matter what you do, this is not... You have to hit the Victory Bell, and your Mon will die. So really all you could go for there is a CM choke. Trailblaze up versus Jolteon, outspeed the next turn, KO it. And if they go into Victory Bell, like, because you can even just CC the next turn if you have it. If they go Lug and they trade versus you, okay, who cares? Because then you get Giraffe in, and you honestly probably just Trick Room and attack 3 times. And by this point in the game, yeah, X6 not his Tera, so if he was just Tera Blast Fire, he'd clean up with that move. Unfortunately, Avarice stood strong, and he actually still had a chance of winning here if this didn't get the poison immediately. Which is kind of funny. Like, Giraffe still had an out, but immediate poison kind of just spells doom. He would have probably needed a nasty plot, though, if he really wanted to have a serious chance there. And yeah, we see Psyshock does a million unboosted, just not enough. And that's also where you could have seen Trailblaze chip helping, because it would have put it in range. Yeah, I think what I probably would have done, personally, I think Trailblaze on that turn with Scyther is okay. It plays to a choke, and you don't have a great shot anyway, but also, I mean, it lets you sack Scyther and get Farigiraf in for free at full, which is also kind of an underrated part of it. So, there you go, if you want to look for something else that's a bit more directed reasoning for the Trailblazer, there's something else. But also, yeah, I think with Farigiraf, I would have immediately set my room. I would have immediately gone for room and then probably, I don't know, I think you have to attack. The one issue is that Avalok still has its sturdy. And with Grim being asleep, I think there's enough that Avarice has to trade that can still get them the win. So it's just a tough angle all around by the end. That's it though for week, I think, 5 of SCL. I hope y'all enjoyed the recap. The trend of the week, yeah, Chansey Avalug core. It is everywhere. It is everywhere. It's just very hard for any... A lot of time you can look at a core and there will be one Mon that maybe gives it a lot of issue. The problem is there's like a group of Mons that give it an issue, but they're all fighting types. Or just physical attackers. So you end up pairing it maybe with another physical wall that can take those kinds of threats on. So we saw Gligar, we saw Palossand, we saw Nisuke Victory Bell. Fighting types are the biggest issue. They are all checked by these fighting resistant Pokemon. And even something like Glast. I mean, Glast is a good Mon. It's not that common. And you can generally take it on anyway with like Lug, for example, if you Terrastalize. Or run, again, like a Gligar or Palossand and have it be Terra Water. And you can take on the Glast that way. So although it's great at beating up on the core itself, it's not too hard to find a partner where you can kind of offset that issue. But I hope y'all enjoyed this. I will see y'all with the next week's coverage on Monday, and tomorrow we'll probably do a little informative video about the Chansey Lug core and why it has been taking the tier by storm. I will see you then though. Peace.